Exposing Ritvik Vada scam, Part 2. The Ritvik philosophy has certain key arguments, which I have identified and systematized. Basic postulates of the Ritvik system. 1. Srila Prabhupada is the Diksha Guru, the current link of the Parampara now. He answers our questions in his books. 2. Srila Prabhupada's comments. This is Prabhupada himself. Reading his comments, you communicate with him. When you read Prabhupada's books, you hear Prabhupada, that's Shravanam. 3. Guru is a principle, not a body, these are his instructions. If you follow them, you associate with the Guru. The principle of Vani is important, and Vapyu is temporary and does not matter. You can forget about the Vapyu. 4. Parampara is the transmission of transcendental knowledge. That is, diksha, not a succession of living diksha gurus. 5. When the book talks about the living Bhagavata, it means Prabhupada. His commentary is a living Bhagavata. 6. Prabhupada is a unique guru, he is a guru and a sadhu and Shastra's free in one. 7. You cannot jump over the acharya, you must accept the current link, that is, Prabhupada, which will be so for 10,000 years. It is forbidden to address previous acharyas, because the Ritvik system believes that Prabhupada has already explained everything in his books and there is no need to read other books. 8. Proponents of Ritvik system believe that the July 9th letter establishes the Ritvik system for operation after Srila Prabhupada's departure. Some Ritvik groups, such as ISKM in Bangalore, believe that they can conduct initiations on behalf of Prabhupada, guided by the July 9th letter. They consider the July 9th letter to be Prabhupada's final order to his ISKCON community. So they say we should follow the Ritvik system as Prabhupada wanted. 9. Ritvik theorists use Prabhupada's phrase in his will, my initiated disciple, as proof that a Ritvik system was established to operate after Prabhupada's departure. 10. Examples of transmission of the Parampara, when a disciple did not see the Guru, but only heard him. Or when the Parampara was transmitted in a non-traditional way. Krishna Brahma Narada Prahlada Vyasadeva Madhavacharya Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Saint Tukaram Narottama Das Visvanatha Chakravarti Jagannatha Das Yamunacharya Ramanujacharya. They are trying to use these examples to justify that Parampara transmission is possible from a departed acharya. Once Brahma could be initiated by Krishna with the help of sound, while he did not see Krishna. So, as they say, we can be initiated by Prabhupada without seeing him. 11. This paragraph is a continuation of the previous one. They like to quote as B298, which says that the potency of transcendental sound is never minimized because the vibrator is apparently absent. They interpret it to mean that Prabhupada's transcendental sound is transmitted through the books. When we read Prabhupada's books, we hear Prabhupada and receive transcendental knowledge from him, that is diksha. 12. Ritvik theorists say that Prabhupada had many thousands of disciples who never met Prabhupada in person. However, they progressed without personal association with Prabhupada and received his guidance from books and senior devotees even while he was present. So, as the Ritviks say, if we read Prabhupada's books now, personal association with Prabhupada is not important, because nothing has changed since Prabhupada was present. After all, even when he was present, only a few could receive personal darshan, and most of his disciples never saw Prabhupada. So nothing changes if we are initiated by Ritviks on behalf of Prabhupada. We will also read his books and listen to lectures. And we will progress, just like those disciples of Prabhupada who were during his presence. All these postulates, explicitly or indirectly, contradict the teachings of Prabhupada. But there is no need to refute each of these postulates, since most of them logically follow from the most important main ones, having refuted which, all other statements lose their meaning. In my early Russian videos I quoted a video of the ISKM which is called Ritvik a bona fide system and refuted their claims. However, they complained to YouTube and my videos were removed. Now there is no need to quote the video of ISKM society, since their position is common to all groups of Ritviks. And so let's start with, it is written in the books, accept the Guru. Inquire submissively and render service unto him. Self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you, because he has seen the truth. How is this possible if he is not physically present? And the Ritviks explain that the Guru is the principle and not the body, that the Vani or the spiritual master's words is more important than the Vapu, form of a Guru etc. Guru's words are in his books, lectures. When we read Prabhupada's books, we associate with Guru. Here is their manipulation, with the concepts of Vani, Vapu are juggling with these concepts. And violation of the principle of Guru Sadhu Sastra. There are several logical fallacies here. So, about everything is in order. Vani means the instructions of the spiritual master and Vapu means the form of the spiritual master. The form of the spiritual master appears before us as the outer manifestation of the paramatma. 81.58. We quote, since one cannot visually experience the presence of the Supersoul, he appears before us as a liberated devotee. Such a spiritual master is none other than Krishna himself. It is not possible for a conditioned soul to directly meet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but if one becomes a sincere devotee and seriously engages in devotional service, Lord Krishna sends an instructing spiritual master to show him favor and invoke his dormant propensity for serving the Supreme. The preceptor appears before the external senses of the fortunate conditioned soul, and at the same time the devotee is guided from within by the Chaitaguru, Krishna, who is seated as the spiritual master within the heart of the living entity. In other words, the preceptor must be manifested before the external senses of the conditioned soul. What does this quote even mean? This quote marks the end of Ritvik speculation about gurus. We have 10 outer senses and 1 inner sense, and the spiritual master must be manifested in front of the outer senses such as hearing, sight and speech in particular. Vision we must see the Guru, hearing we must hear the Guru, and speech we must be able to ask questions at the level of speech, that is the principle of Sadhu Sangha. Communication with a Sadhu. First you meet a Guru who is manifested before your outer senses. You receive instructions from his Vapu form and then you follow them Vani. Notice that the quote is talking about a conditioned soul. This is a process for a conditioned soul. Liberated souls may have other ways of communicating with the spiritual master. We will discuss this later. There may be interactions through the inner senses. Thus the proponents of Ritvik idea do not have a Guru manifested to their outer senses. All their assurances are that they are instructed by Prabhupada through the books. It is not the principle of inquiring from a manifested Sadhu or Sadhu Sangha. Their questioning through the books is through the inner sense, through the mind, and not through the outer senses. Therefore, their process of acquiring knowledge is contrary to the principle stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Next, they have a manipulation or violation of the principle of Guru Sadhu Sastra. And so, in the process of a dispute with representatives of ISKM, to my quote from SB 1, 2.18 about a living devotee Bhagavata. They have an interesting answer. And so we quote, SB 1, 2.18 purport. There are 2 types of Bhagavatas, namely the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. The devotee Bhagavata is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So by pleasing the devotee Bhagavata one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagavata. The messages of the book Bhagavata therefore have to be received from the devotee Bhagavata, and the combination of these 2 Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee to make progress on and on. So their answer on this quote was like this. Regarding the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata, the slokas of the Srimad Bhagavatam are the book Bhagavata and the purports of Srila Prabhupada are the devotee Bhagavata. So, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we are having complete association of the book Srimad Bhagavatam and the person Bhagavatam in the form of Srila Prabhupada's purports. Moreover, we have so many lectures and conversations and bhajans of Srila Prabhupada that we can listen to. So there is no dearth of association with the person Bhagavata. I want to once again draw attention to how Ritvik supporters distort Prabhupada's teachings. When they interpret the quote I gave, They say that the devotee Bhagavata is Prabhupada's commentary, and the words of Krishna and previous acharyas are the Shastras. That is, there is a direct violation of the principal Guru Sadhu Sastra. We will talk about lectures, conversations and bhajans of Prabhupada later in the next video, whether this is really a full-fledged association with the devotee Bhagavata. That is, they claim that the message of the book Bhagavata must be received from the devotee Bhagavata, who is in the book, that is, from Prabhupada's purports. It turns out that we should receive the message of the book Bhagavata from the book Bhagavata and not from the devotee Bhagavata manifested before our external senses. They interpret the direct meaning of Prabhupada's words and give them their own explanation, which is contrary to the principle of Guru Sadhu Sastra. But the natural understanding without any interpretation is, I am holding Prabhupada's book, I am reading it. So Prabhupada's book is the book Bhagavata. And the manifested Guru is the devotee Bhagavata. In addition, they distort the meaning of the word Shastra. When they say that Shastras are the slokas of Srimad Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's purports are the Guru. And Shastra means the opinion of the great authorities. Just like Vyasadeva, Parasara Muni, Narada Muni, modern acharyas. SB 1.7 lectures we have to take lessons from authorities. Here is Kunti authority. Therefore her statements are recorded in the Shastra. What is Shastra? Shastra means is the record of the statement of authorities. That is called Shastra. Just like in law court you put law books. What is that law book? Law book means the statement of the authorities. Similarly, Shastra. Shastra means weapon and Shastra means the law books. So what is the law book? Law book means some authority which has given the law. So the government gives law. So similarly, Shastra means the statement given by the authorities. SB 1, 8.28 Mayapur October 8, 74. I don't think anyone will mind if we say that Srila Prabhupada is the authority in the spiritual science of bhakti. If we take into account the statement of this quotation, it turns out that the written words of the authority are the Shastras. So Prabhupada's commentary is the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata is the Guru manifested before our external senses, who explains to us the meaning of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, by their explanation that Prabhupada is now a diksa Guru, who gives instructions from his books, contradicts several principles of the Vaishnava Siddhanta at once. This is contrary to Chaitanya Charitamrita 81.58, that is the principle of the manifested Guru. This is contrary to the principle of Guru Sadhu Sastra. Because the book is the Shastra and not the Guru. The book is the book Bhagavata, not the devotee Bhagavata. The devotee Bhagavata is a manifested Guru, who is called a Shreya Vigraha in Sanskrit. Ritvik supporters have tried to challenge this point by saying that Prabhupada appears to our outer senses in the form of a murti. And we can listen to his lectures through our external senses such as hearing, and we can watch his videos with our eyes, that is, Prabhupada appears before our vision. We will consider the failure of this speculation in the following videos. I want to draw attention to the following circumstances. In the ISKM society and in other communities of followers of the Ritvik system, initiation ceremonies are held, ostensibly on behalf of Prabhupada. They allegedly act on the basis of the order of July 9th. In this connection, we have series of questions to representatives of such organizations. 1. Who authorized them to act as representatives of Prabhupada? The July 9th letter did not authorize these individuals to act on Prabhupada's behalf. 2. Why they violate the requirement of July 9th letter? The letter requires that the names of initiated devotees to be sent to Prabhupada. For these names to be included in the book Initiated Disciples of Prabhupada. Why do they violate this condition? 3. Why do these people pretend to be representatives of the departed Acharya if the letter says Ritik, the representative of the Acharya? The Acharya has gone, which means there are no representatives of the Acharya. In the process of arguing with the representatives of the ISKM, they claim that Prabhupada is their Guru. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that the Guru must be manifested for the external senses. In particular, the Guru must be manifested at the level of speech. So I asked these representatives, If they say that Prabhupada is their diksa guru, then it should be possible to speak to Prabhupada on the level of speech and get a clear answer from him. According to BG 4.34. So I want to ask Prabhupada a question and get an answer. And my question will be this. Whether Srila Prabhupada authorized Sundara Gopala Prabhu to initiate on his behalf or not. Because it's very important. If he answers that he empowered him, then the initiations conducted by the ISKM society are authoritative. And if he says that he did not authorize him, then these initiations are not authoritative. If Srila Prabhupada does not answer anything, then he is not manifested before our external senses, and cannot be an external manifestation of the paramatma, that is, the instructing spiritual master. They replied like this. As per the authorization of Sundar Gopal Prabhu, I think you failed to realize that Srila Prabhupada said, more can be added if necessary. You can see Tamala Krishna Goswami's confession in 1980. He admitted that. So on the strength of those statements, Sundar Gopal Prabhu is perfectly authorized. Those who were actually authorized by Srila Prabhupada did not do the job. But the job has to be done. So he took up the responsibility after being voted in by all our temple presidents. In this phrase, those who were actually authorized by Srila Prabhupada did not do the job. What they mean is that the GBC made a mistake and non-authoritatively appointed 11 zonal acharyas. Yes, it was a mistake, because these individuals were not qualified enough to be Diksha Gurus. Okay, GBC made a mistake, but at least GBC is Prabhupada's authorized body. And the fact that the GBC made a mistake does not give you any right to claim that Prabhupada authorized you to initiate on his behalf. The July 9th letter does not give you or anyone else that right. That was their answer. But according to Prabhupada's will, it is said that Prabhupada authorized the governing body of the GBC to run this society. Also, in a conversation on May 28, it is said that only the GBC themselves can add new GBCs. Temple presidents have no such authority. Especially the presidents of temples of non-ISKCON organization. Conversation of May 28. Satsvarupa, but then in the event that some present GBC member leaves, Prabhupada, another should be elected. Satsvarupa, by the votes of the present GBC. That is, only GBC members themselves can replace him and nothing else. Therefore, only GBC members can add new Acharya representatives as per the May 28 talk and Prabhupada's will. But as far as I know, the GBC did not authorize Sundar Gopal Prabhu to initiate on Prabhupada's behalf. I have not heard of any resolution where the GBC commissioned Sundar Gopal for this role. Madhu Pandit turned out to be more sophisticated in this matter, and they created their own GBC there in Bangalore, which in turn chose Ritviks to initiate on behalf of Prabhupada. However, it must be said that such a self-appointed GBC is not authoritative. Because the members of this GBC were not added by the original GBC, which is Prabhupada's successor. Therefore, the initiations carried out by these non-authoritative groups are fake initiations. With the same success, you can get initiation from Santa Claus or Mickey Mouse. All these are clowns and shows for narrow-minded people. Why they don't write a letter to Santa Claus to get initiated? I think he'll be happy to satisfy their inquiry before Christmas Day. The result will be the same. The Ritvik's proponents very often like to put the argument that Srila Prabhupada had many thousands of disciples. And he did not personally instruct everyone, but the instruction was given by temple presidents, senior devotees, and that Srila Prabhupada never met physically with some of his disciples. And that seems no changes after his departure. They say everything will remain the same. Devotees will come, and even if Prabhupada is not physically present, everything will proceed in the same way as it was in Srila Prabhupada's presence, when new disciples did not meet Prabhupada physically. But the essential flaw in this argument is that while Prabhupada was present, the Bhagavata was present. And one way or another, if any of the disciples had a question, or a contradiction or a conflict, one could always go directly to Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada did the correspondence, he answered the questions of his disciples. When there were any incomprehensible situations. And he always cleared up, resolved and settled down these situations every day. Sometimes even Prabhupada intervened directly in the situation and reprimanded the devotees, put them in their place. And every day if you look at the database, there is a huge amount of correspondence every day. There was always an opportunity to turn to Prabhupada. And even if one of the disciples who had never met Prabhupada physically had a question, he asked this question to senior devotees, and if they could not answer this question, they would ask this question directly to Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada in his turn personally answered this question. In addition, there was always the opportunity to contact Prabhupada's secretariat to get an answer to your question. One could write a letter, call, and finally come and talk to Prabhupada in person or through a secretary. So there was direct interaction with the Bhagavata. There was no such thing that the question remained without feedback. And now there is no feedback from Prabhupada because he is not manifested in front of our external senses. And he cannot answer our direct question. Therefore, a conditioned being cannot receive guidance from a departed acharya. And there is no need to tell us that everything will happen as it was during Prabhupada's time. 4. Parampara is the transmission of transcendental knowledge, not the succession of living diksa gurus. They say the principle of Parampara is that knowledge is transferred from guru to disciple. And not that guru and disciple must meet physically to transfer knowledge. They give the example of Lord Brahma who did not see Krishna but only heard him. As for the cases of initiation, when the disciple does not see the guru, this is a separate point and it must be analyzed in detail. Shloka and commentary CC 81.58 establishes the following condition. The need to see the Guru is essential exactly for the conditioned soul. The quote says, since one cannot visually experience the presence of Supersoul, he appears before us as a liberated devotee. Such a spiritual master is none other than Krishna himself. Purport: it is not possible for a conditioned soul to directly meet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but if one becomes a sincere devotee and seriously engages in devotional service, Lord Krishna sends an instructing spiritual master to show him favor and invoke his dormant propensity for serving the Supreme. The preceptor appears before the external senses of the fortunate conditioned soul, and at the same time the devotee is guided from within by the Chaitaguru, Krishna, who is seated as the spiritual master within the heart of the living entity. That is, the quotation says that the Guru appears before the external senses of the conditioned soul, so that the conditioned soul can see the external manifestation of the paramatma. What it says at the beginning of the quote, since one cannot visually experience the presence of Supersoul, therefore paramatma appears so that he can see him. So paramatma appears before the external senses of the disciple. And what a disciple, what type of a disciple? The one who is conditioned, as the quotation makes clear. But there are exceptions to this rule, so to speak, exclusive situations. This is when those who were originally on the transcendental level receive initiation. And they were not in a conditioned state. As for Lord Brahma, there are some nuances here. Right now, we will quote the commentary of SB 298 a little, but not the entire commentary, but only the most key points. So Lord Brahma heard the occult sound tapa, but he did not see the person who vibrated the sound. His acceptance of the sound was due to his pure vision of the absolute nature of the Lord. And due to his correct vision, he made no distinction between the Lord and the Lord's instruction. There is no difference between the Lord and sound vibration coming from him, even though he is not personally present. The secret of success is to receive the sound from the right source of a bona fide spiritual master. The best way of understanding is to accept such divine instruction, and Brahma, the prime spiritual master of everyone, is the living example of this process of receiving transcendental knowledge. The potency of transcendental sound is never minimized because the vibrator is apparently absent. Here it is also important to quote the previous comment in order to put all the puzzles together. And so as B297, to achieve success in life, one should follow the example of Lord Brahma, the first living creature in the beginning of creation. Brahma was the only living being at the time because there was no other creation and none could be found there except himself. As already stated, Brahma is the original spiritual master for the universe, and since he was initiated by the Lord himself, the message of Srimad Bhagavatam is coming down by disciplic succession, and in order to receive the real message of Srimad Bhagavatam one should approach the current link, a spiritual master, in the chain of disciplic succession. One should not, however, think himself on the level of Brahma to be initiated directly by the Lord from inside, because in the present age no one can be accepted to be as pure as Brahma. Prabhupada in his commentary expressly warns those who want to be initiated in the same way as Brahma, that you should not count on any exclusivity in getting initiation if you are not on the same level as Brahma. Therefore, for all others who are not on the same platform as Brahma, the order is made to approach the spiritual master, who is the current link or to the present Acharya. And the Acharya, as already quoted in the earlier quotations, has the form of a Shreya Vigraha, accessible to the external senses of the disciple. Here in the figure I would like to illustrate the meaning of the quotes. CC 81.58 and SB2, 9.7 to 9.8. The figure shows the paramatma, Acharyas who are in the unmanifested state, the modes of nature, ignorance, passion, goodness, and conditioned living beings who are in different gunas. Kanishas and madhamas are conditioned living beings who are in the modes of nature. Conditioned living beings can only perceive or see within the modes of nature. Their feelings are material. And also paramatma is depicted, which has its own form, which appears before our external material senses, so that those who are in the modes of nature, conditioned living beings, could see him and enter into communication with him. This will be the external manifestation of the Paramatma, the embodied spiritual master. Conditioned living beings can interact with the external manifestation of the Paramatma only through the material senses, within the three modes of nature. I've highlighted it in green here. This is their zone of perception. They have this ability to perceive. Therefore, they see only the form of the Guru, who appears before the external senses. Whereas devotees of the level of Uttama, they have a wider range of perception. They have spiritual vision. Therefore, they perceive everything that is in the material modes. That is, they see the form of the Guru manifested before the external senses. And they also see everything that is beyond the modes of nature. That is, they see the Paramatma and the Acharyas who are in an unmanifested form. All that is inaccessible to the perception of conditioned beings. Whereas conditioned beings, Kanishas and Madhamas, can only see the external manifestation of the Paramatma in the form of a Shreya Vigraha. Therefore, the Lord embodies in this his form, so that the conditioned beings, who are in the modes of material nature, can see him. So that they could enter into a communication with him, so that he could instruct them, correct them, etc. What is the meaning of these quotes? Liberated and conditioned living beings have different perception capacities. Therefore, the ways of initiating them will be different. As for the quote often cited by proponents of the Ritvik theory, the potency of transcendental sound is never minimized because the vibrator is apparently absent. This is their manipulation, that they want to say that they get knowledge from Prabhupada's books. As Brahma did not see Krishna but only heard him, they do not see Prabhupada, but hear his instructions in books. They say that the sound does not lose its power if its source is not visible. We don't see Prabhupada, we hear him, they say. Let's take a close look at this speculation. Brahma heard this sound because he was not conditioned. His acceptance of the sound was due to his pure vision of the absolute nature of the Lord. Therefore, he could hear the Lord directly. For those ones who are conditioned, there is an injunction to accept the current link. That is, to listen to this message from the manifested Guru, who is the current link of the Parampara. In this sense, the potency of transcendental sound is never minimized. Because those who are conditioned are not able to perceive Shabda Brahman directly. Among the Ritvik proponents, there is no manifest Guru who is the outer manifestation of the Paramatma. So for them it doesn't work. They just pull quotes out of context and quote them like parrots without any understanding. From proponents of the Ritvik theory, one can often hear such examples of parampara transmitting. When a disciple did not see his Guru, or when a disciple received knowledge from a departed or unmanifested Acharya. They try to interpret these examples to support their idea. And so, here are these examples. 1. Krishna Brahma. 2. Narada Prahlad. 3. Vyasamadhvacharya 4th and 5th link of Parampara. 4. Chaitanya M. Saint Tukaram. 5. Narottama D. Vishwanatha Chakravarti 26th and 27th Parampara links. 6. Visvanatha Chach Jagannatha D. 27, 28 Parampara links. 7. Sometimes they even give the example of Yamunacharya Ramanuja from Sri Sampradaya. I want to say right away that this all comes from their meager knowledge of philosophy and not from a great mind. I have heard these examples from Ritvik theorists. It should also be noted that under point 3, Vyasa and Madhavacharya are the 4th and 5th links of our Parampara. Here is an example of how Ritvik proponents interpreted this fact, as if the transcendental knowledge is received from a departed acharya. That one who gave this example argued that if Vyasa is the 4th link of the Parampara and Madhavacharya is the 5th link of the Parampara, then there was a transmission of diksha between those acharyas. Diksha is interpreted by them as transcendental knowledge that destroys karmic reactions. And that this knowledge can only be transmitted by a diksha guru. Also in the point 5, Narottama Das Thakur Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur 26th and 27th Parampara links, they also state that this is the transmission of diksha. Between the departure of one acharya and appearing of another, there was a gap of 120 years. The same is in point 6, Visvanatha Chach Jagannatha D. 27, 28 Parampara links. There, between the departure of one acharya and appearing of another, there was a gap of 70 years. They never met physically. Now these points will be explained. 1. Krishna Brahma. We have already dealt with this example. Brahma is in the transcendental platform. Therefore, it was not necessary for him to see his guru. He could hear him and receive knowledge from him. 2. Narada Muni, Prahlad Maharaja. In general, all the examples given here relate to Vaishnavas of the highest transcendental level. And it would be possible to unite them all in this category and close the question, saying that they were not conditioned souls at all. But I will still comment on these examples. As for Narada Muni and Prahlada Maharaja, as we have already quoted, a manifested guru is required only by a conditioned soul. As for those who are on the transcendental platform, for them the guru can manifest both on the physical level and on the transcendental level. Prahlad Maharaja, like Brahma, is on the transcendental platform, eternal associate of Lord Nrsimhadeva. He did not require physical contact with his guru. It is said that Prahlad was the greatest devotee. As for Vyasadeva and Madhavacharya, the point is, to understand this example, one has to understand the Parampara system. The fact is that Parampara does not always mean that here is one acharya, transfers knowledge to another acharya, then to a third acharya and so on. Parampara doesn't work exactly that way. Let's say, here is one acharya. He has several disciples, let's say 3. Although in fact he may have 100 disciples and 200. But let's say that out of those 200, only 3 disciples became acharyas. And they are shown here. Each next acharya also has 3 disciples who continue the Parampara. Those respectively have their own disciples. And let's say here is in this link, one acharya receives diksha from another. Here we will depict that he receives diksha. But he is more inspired by this acharya and he gets shiksha from him. That is, this acharya will be a diksha guru for him, but this acharya will be a siksha guru for him. Therefore, it turns out that there are many parallel shrines inside the Parampara. Therefore, sometimes it turns out that the Parampara which came to us, these are the acharyas. This acharya and that acharya are numbered 3 and 4 respectively. Although the diksha mantra was transmitted through a different chain. For a clearer illustration of this principle, I give another example. The 28th link is Jagannatha Das Babaji. The 29th link is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The 30th link is Gorakishore Das Babaji and the 31st link is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Note the links 29 and 30. Gorakishora Das Babaji was not a Diksha disciple of Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Jagannatha Das Babaji initiated Srila Bhagavata Dasa, who in turn initiated Gorakishora Das Babaji, who in turn initiated Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura. This is a good example of how this principle works. That transcendental knowledge is transmitted through both Diksha and Siksha. And it does not quite mean that if one Acharya in the Parampara stands after another, then this was necessarily a Diksha relationship. Concerning Madhavacharya and the gap of 4,300 years between Madhavacharya and Vyasadeva, as stated by this man, here is just the case when it happens. Madhavacharya received knowledge from several Parampara chains. According to one of the chains, his teacher is considered Achyutapraksha, who initiated him into sannyasa at the age of 11. He immediately gave him sannyasa. Madhavacharya was a very unusual person. And also this Parampara goes back to Narayana. Sri Narayana then Brahmaji then Hachaksana then Durvasa, Pasatirtha Yati, Pranitirtha, Achyutapraksha, Madhavacharya. The Diksha Guru of Madhavacharya was Achyutapraksha. Also CC Madha 9.245 says, accompanied by Sadhyatirtha, Madhavacharya went to Badarkashrama. It was there that he met Vyasadeva and explained his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita before him. Thus he became a great scholar by studying before Vyasadeva. From Vyasadeva he received Siksha. Thus, there was no gap in the Parampara. And the second point is that Madhavacharya personally met the Vapya form of Vyasadeva present in the Badaraka ashram. And there he received knowledge from him. And the fact that the author who gave these examples said that Vyasadeva is present in the Badaraka ashram in an unmanifested form. So, in an unmanifested form, he is present for conditioned souls. And for liberated souls he is present even in a very manifest form. Therefore, there was no problem for Madhavacharya to meet Vyasadeva personally. Example 4. Saint Tukaram was initiated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is said that Saint Tukaram saw Lord Chaitanya in a dream and received initiation from him. Well, as in the cases described earlier, here is an example of a personality on a transcendental level. Saint Tukaram was the greatest Vaishnava from the very birth. In some sources, he is considered a Nitya Siddha who came from Vaikuntha. Even before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu initiation. Wherever he went, he chanted Ram Krishna Hari everywhere. It is said that where he passed, the earth continued to sing the holy names. He had never been a conditioned soul. He is a unique person. And so we are left with the fifth and the sixth examples. Also, these examples relate to personalities on a transcendental level. In addition, when it is said that Narottama Das Thakur accepted Visvanatha Chakravarti Thakur as his servant, it means Siksha relationship. And so we go to Wikipedia biography of Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura. His initiating guru was Sri Utakasnakarana Chakravarti of Syedabad, Murshidabad, who was fourth in the line from Narottama Dasa. Visvanatha Chakravarti resided with his guru for many years and composed many books during that time. Here in the English language Wikipedia the moment of who was the Diksha Guru Vishwanatha Chakravarti is very briefly described. In our Russian version it is described in more detail. So we go to Russian Wikipedia. As a child, Vishwanatha completed his studies at Devigram and moved to Saidabad. Some researchers claim that Vishwanatha continued his studies under Ganganarayana Chakravarti of Saidabad, while others believe that his teacher was the adopted son of Ganganarayana named Krishnakarana. Vishwanatha received Diksha from Radharamana Chakravarti, the son and disciple of Krishnakarana. That means that Parampara was in this way. This is Diksha Parampara. Narottama Das Thakur, Ganganarayana Chakravarti, Krishna Charana, Radharamana Chakravarti, Vishwanatha Chakravarti. This is Shiksha Parampara Narottama Das Thakur, Vishwanatha Chakravarti. So if these two persons were on transcendental level, nothing could check them to associate each other. The sixth example of Vishwanatha Chakravarti and Jagannath Das Babaji, Wikipedia biography. Jagannatha Dasa Babaji, IST, Jagannatha Dasa Babaji, was a Gaudiya Vaishnava saint. He took spiritual initiation from Jagadananda Goswami of Vrindavan, and later took Babaji initiation from Madhusudana Dasa Babaji. The Diksha Guru of Jagannatha Dasa Babaji was Jagadananda Goswami of Vrindavan. Accordingly, Visvanatha Chakravarti Thakura was his Siksha Guru. Regarding Yamunacharya and Ramanujacharya from the Sri Sampradaya. After a break with a former teacher, Ramanuja went to Yamunacharya, who developed the philosophical aspects of the work of the Alvars. Yamunacharya was the spiritual leader of the young Tamil Sri Vaishnavism in Srirangam. Kantipurna belongs to this community, and at his suggestion Ramanuja went to Srirangam. However, due to the death of Yamunacharya, Ramanuja never saw his new teacher, although he devoted his whole life to the development and continuation of his teachings. Formally, Ramanuja joined the Srirangam community a year after the death of Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya's senior disciple, Mahapurna, initiated him. He also became Ramanuja's second teacher, and under his tutelage the young Vaishnava studied the poetry of the Tamil Alvars. Therefore the Diksa Guru of Ramanuja Acharya was Mahapurna. It was not like he was receiving Diksha from the departed Yamunacharya. They say that Prabhupada's books give them transcendental knowledge and they don't need a manifested Guru. But how will they receive transcendental knowledge without the presence of the Mahabhagavata, who is on the transcendental platform? Who, the book, the departed Acharya, will give transcendental knowledge to the conditioned soul, who is in the modes of nature. It is not the lips of a pure devotee that will impart knowledge, but a book, a departed Acharya, will impart it. This is a very strong speculation, contrary to Prabhupada's teachings. Such a case has never been in the Parampara. Always the manifested Guru endowed the conditioned soul with Diksha or transcendental knowledge. And so we quote an interesting verse and comments by Prabhupada. This commentary is about the importance of hearing from the lips of a pure devotee. I will not read the entire comment because it is very large. I will quote the most key points. My dear Lord, you are glorified by the selected verses uttered by great personalities. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouths of great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, the forgetful living entity gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, I therefore do not need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of your pure devotee. It is explained in the previous verse that one has to hear glorification of the Lord from the mouth of a pure devotee. The transcendental vibration from the mouth of a pure devotee is so powerful that it can revive the living entity's memory of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As expressed in a song by Thakura Bhaktivinoda, Lord Chaitanya says, Jiva Jaga, Jiva Jaga. The Lord asks every sleeping living entity to get up and engage in devotional service so that his mission in this human form of life may be fulfilled. This awakening voice comes through the mouth of a pure devotee. A pure devotee always engages in the service of the Lord, taking shelter of his lotus feet, and therefore he has a direct connection with the saffron mercy particles that are strewn over the lotus feet of the Lord. Although when a pure devotee speaks, the articulation of his voice may resemble the sound of this material sky, the voice is spiritually very powerful because it touches the particles of saffron dust on the lotus feet of the Lord. As soon as a sleeping living entity hears the powerful voice emanating from the mouth of a pure devotee, he immediately remembers his eternal relationship with the Lord, although up until that moment, he had forgotten everything. And further in the commentary, Srila Prabhupada mentions many times the need to hear from the lips of a pure devotee. Here it should be noted that we are talking about the manifested form of the spiritual master. What the phrase indicates, the articulation of their voice. Articulation is the work of organs of speech. Tongue, lips, teeth, soft palate, etc. That is, we are talking about the Guru manifested before our external senses. Therefore, we recall the conversation of May 28, which was considered in the first series of this video, where Prabhupada says it is within the mouth. That is, Prabhupada means the embodiment of paramatma, a pure devotee accessible to our external senses. In this video, we have analyzed various examples from the Parampara. In these examples, cases of spiritual initiations of those who are on the transcendental level are given. As we can see, these ways of initiation are different from the ways of initiation of conditioned souls. The point is that there should be a spiritual master anyway. If you are in the transcendental platform, you can get initiated from the acharya from the transcendental level. If you are a conditioned being, you receive initiation from the physical manifested acharya. Evidence was also given of the importance of association and hearing from a pure devotee, from the manifested guru. In the next video, we continue to analyze the postulates of Ritviks and will touch on the topic of guru succession, who can be considered as an external manifestation of the paramatma. It is quite obvious that not every diksha guru can be one. Here is the topics we're gonna cover in the following videos. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned. See you in the following video. Jai Shri Guru and Gauranga. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy.